Take it away.
All right. I was just getting set up the recording so that I can send this out to you guys later. A couple of people said they weren't going to make it today, so they wanted it recorded. So because of that, everybody benefits from it. We all get to see it. Thank you. So the big thing is, like we were saying, pretty much the tech department is going to be in condition red the whole time, just to make sure that if we have to switch over, then we're in the best possible shape to support you guys when that happens. So please understand that that's the rationale behind it, not that we're all a bunch of like hyper germaphobes or anything. It's really just that we know that if somebody in our department gets sick, that cuts down on like half of our capacity for the entire district. So, we just basically have to take every precaution in order to make sure that we're in the best shape possible to serve you guys. The first thing that we're going to take a look at today is Microsoft Teams. There is a couple of things that I wanted to go over. Just make sure I'm on the right tab here. There are some improvements that have been made since last year. The first thing is that now Teams does 3x3 video grids. Before it was 2x2, now it's 3x3, and they're expanding that over the next couple of months. So hopefully within a couple of months, they're going to bring it down to like something around 50 concurrent video streams on the page at once. The only way that works, though, is if you are using the desktop app. So you have to be using the desktop app. It should be on pretty much everybody's computer, and if it's not already installed on your device, you can find it in the Software Center, or if you are one of the few people who is using a Mac, you can find that in the Self-Service app. Pretty much everything that you want to find on a MacBook is going to be in the Self-Service app. And pretty much everything that you can want from a Windows device is going to be in your, I just said it and now it just went right out my head. But it'll be in Software Center, that's it. Right in here, there's an item called Install Teams for you Mac users. So you just click on that one. It's something similar in Software Center where you just find Microsoft Teams in the list and install it there. Like I said, I still think that it's one of the default apps that's automatically installed. So you should just be able to hit the Windows key and type in Teams, and then it'll run it for you. So 3x3 video grid, plans in the pipeline to include something like 48 video feeds. Show participants download attendee list. Okay, so if I start a meeting, okay, I messed with some things, so I need to change my device settings. Which actually is a good thing to show off. If you ever find that you are not receiving audio or people can't hear you, it's always good to check your settings in Microsoft Teams. You just click on the three dots for more actions, and then you click on Show Device Settings. And this will take you to a spot where you can choose which microphone and which video feed and which speakers you're using. So right now, the speaker is set up to the right one. It's not one that you guys are going to be using. You're probably going to be using either the speaker on your device or the USB speaker in your room. My microphone, I'm going to set up to the microphone on my device. In this case, it's the MacBook Air's microphone. In your case, it would be I don't remember exactly what it's called, but it's like onboard microphone or something like that. You could also use your HoverCam as a microphone. Each HoverCam has a microphone and can be used as a webcam. So if you wanted to use that to say show all of the attendees of a meeting that are sitting in your room, you can flip up the webcam on your HoverCam, point it out towards your room, and then just switch over to that video feed on here. Right in here, there's where the camera is. Right here, it's this one's the FaceTime HD camera. Yours would be like Microsoft's built-in camera or whatever. Some of the devices have a front-facing and a rear-facing camera. So it's good to know which one you're actually plugged into in here. So then I'll X out of that. I don't know why it's not picking up the webcam right now, but we're just going to barrel on through in spite of that. So show participants and attendee list. If we take a look at the menu down here when we're hovering over the video feed, down here we have one that says show participants. Now what you can do with the show participants menu is, I believe it's under the three dots. No, it's not. I would suppose I would probably need more than one person in the meeting. There would be a option up here that allows you to download the participant list, and it'll let you grab that list and see who was attending this meeting, and then you can use that to fill out your attendance if you needed to. You can do that at any time, and I believe it does catch people who came in and already left. So that's a quick way to just take your role for people who are attending the meeting virtually, and then later on you can manage that however you need to. That was another thing that they added since the last time we've talked. Raise hand in a meeting. So down here, I don't know why I'm not getting all these options. I'm gonna go ahead and restart Microsoft Teams. And we're gonna see if that fixes it.
Invite somebody to join.
Yeah, I might have to do that. The last time I checked this, it was working without any attendees in the meeting, so we're gonna hope it's just because although it might be because I'm recording. And now, of course, it's locked up. Let's try this once again. Okay, what if I remove this? And then go back over here. Does that fix it? Okay, that has not fixed it. Excellent. Okay, so normally what you would see down here is you would see a little hand icon, and that is the raise hand feature which was added over the past couple of months. Due to high demand from educational users, they knew that that was something that they were going to want, and that would also show up in the Show Participants tab here. So over on the right-hand side, you would see a list of people who have their hands raised. I think it raises them to the top of the list so that you know to pay attention to them. But then, that marks people as saying, they've got a question. So that's a nice little feature to have. I'm going to go ahead and invite somebody. Is there anybody who's got Teams pulled up right now? Okay, so Rook. Okay, so video stopped working. Try switching to another device. I don't have another device. So do you have an option in there to raise your hand?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, it's right between the share tray and the three dots, right? Or is, yeah.
I guess
Okay, and so if you raise your hand, what does it show?
I raised my hand.
Okay, for whatever reason, my device is not showing that you've raised your hand, but normally it would show up on here that you've raised your hand. Interesting. I don't know why this is not working the way it's supposed to, but we're just going to assume that it's because of how I'm recording this right now. So we're just going to move on. Meeting options. And now somebody's calling me. Okay. So, meeting options. Set who can bypass the lobby and who can present. So when I'm setting up a meeting, I have options that I can go ahead and set for the meeting. Right in here, it would be under, I think it's under show meeting details. Nope, this is just where you can go to get your link for the meeting. So you can right click on this and copy the link to the meeting if you want to post it on your learning management system or something. If you want to post it into PowerSchool Learning, you can do that from here. Otherwise, if I leave this meeting, when I schedule a meeting, and I can do that by clicking the down arrow next to the meet thing, when I schedule a meeting, it is going to provide a link for me as well. So I have to create the meeting, so we're going to call this one demo. And then you have to add at least one required attendee, which can be yourself, I believe. Maybe, yep, there it is. Okay, so once I've created this meeting, it's going to put it in my calendar. So right now I'm going to create the meeting for 8:30 to 9, and I'll hit send. And then when I click on the actual meeting that I've scheduled, that is going to give me the link for the upcoming meeting. And I can use the same link over and over again. You know, depending on how your class is set up, you might want to set up multiple meetings, or you might want to set up, you know, just the one meeting. And it's going to be slow. And I'm going to be impatient. Boy, it is just not being fun for me today. All right, so if it doesn't load again, then I'm just going to, you know, say, assume it's going to be at the bottom. It'll say, join the Microsoft Teams meeting. It also gets sent in your email, so you would see an email that gets sent to you as an invite to a meeting. There we go, it finally loaded. And it's not showing the thing that should appear right here that says join the Microsoft Teams meeting. Excellent. Just nothing is going to work for me today, you know?
It's Monday.
It is Monday. Usually a thing would show up on there that says join the Microsoft Teams meeting. Okay. Add custom backgrounds. So for this, I would need my webcam to work. And we know that that hasn't been working. We're going to give it one more shot. You might have had a chance to play around with this at the end of last year because they had just implemented it as a feature. So you might have already seen that you can blur out your background, which is good for, you know, when you're at home and you don't want any distractions from your background in there. Boy, it is just going to be stubborn. No, because it's my webcam that's not. Yeah, I might have to stop recording here and then start up a new recording, but I'll probably do that towards the end because I want to keep us moving. So anyway, when you go into a meeting, one of the options under More Actions right here is Show Background Effects. And you can just go in and select a different background effect. So, you know, they've got your some of the defaults in here. You know, you can get a nice classy, minimalist sort of, you know, living room sort of look, or a little office, and then there's some more colorful ones. And you can also add your own. So if you have your own background that you want to use, you can click on plus add new, and then it'll bring up the file dialog box, and then you can go in and select your own background. Now there is a size requirement. It has to be big enough to be a background, but then you can choose exactly what you want for a background. So you know, this is one of those features that can be a lot of fun, you know, because you can put something that's relevant to your content area. You could put something that's more personal to you, whatever you like. You know, the downside, of course, is that I believe that option is also available to students. So, you know, proceed with caution. Let's see, search in a chat or a team. So if I was looking for something that happened in a past chat, what I can do is I can go up to the search bar up here and I can search for people, or I can search for messages within a chat. So if I hit Control F, it'll ask me to find a message within the chat that I'm currently looking at. So right now, if I wanted to refer back to something that Ipo and I had talked about, I can just type in whatever the keyword that I'm looking for is in this top bar. Right here, it'll say it's looking for any conversations that I've had with Ipo, and then I would type in my search term here, and it would try and find that. So that can be really good for, like, if you have, if you've been talking with a student or if you've been talking with another staff member and you want to refer back to something that happened a while back but you don't remember exactly when, just hit Command F or Control F when you're in the chat window with them, and it'll let you search back through the history. Now, if you don't know who was telling you the thing, you can just type it into the search bar at the top of the screen, and it will try and find anything relevant with any person. So this can be a very powerful tool. And if I'm looking for a specific person, I can just type their name in there, and it'll look through the entire staff directory and try and find them. So I just know their last name is Rook, and if I click on Eric Rook, it'll take me to the chat that I've had with Eric Rook. So there's a lot of power in that search bar at the top. Be sure that if you're using Teams quite a bit, that you know about that search bar and how to use it. Pop-out chat. So if I wanted to have multiple chats going at the same time, all I got to do is double click on the person's name, or at least that's how it should work. It's supposed to work where I just double click on their name and then it'll pop out another chat window. And then I can have multiple chat windows going at the same time. I don't know if I got reverted to an old version of Teams or something, because like none of the things that are supposed to be working are working. But yeah, that's supposed to be able to pop out, so I just double click on it and it would pop out another instance of the chat window. That can be really useful, and it's again a new feature. The last thing that I have for Teams is the Bookings app. And the Bookings app is something else that was added recently. If I go to the three dots, one of the apps in here is called Bookings, and I can use that to I can use that to create a scheduling app so that I can set up all of my times that I'm available and allow people to book me. So I actually did set one of those up, and I'm going to need to figure out exactly where that link goes. Oh, yeah, Open Bookings web app. And it actually works with your Outlook calendar, so any calendar items that you've put in Outlook automatically block off time so that people can't book with you. But this can be extremely useful for setting up like office hours and making sure that people are actually scheduling time with you rather than sending you an email, at 8 at night after you've already turned off your computer and you're not looking at your email and they're trying to make an appointment for you at 7 in the morning or something like that. That's no fun. You create one of these bookings apps here, and it'll let students, it'll let you set the parameters under which students can set appointments with you. So if I said, okay, I want half-hour blocks, and I want students to have to make their appointments 24 hours in advance, you can set it up that way. I'm not going to go over the details on how to do this right now, but if this is something that's interesting to you, go ahead and let me know, and I will be in the future going over how to use this, because I do see this as being useful, especially once if we have to go to distance learning again and have to be doing at-home office hours, that kind of thing. So right now I've already got it set up so that I've got my booking page. If I click to open it, this is what it's going to look like from the user end. You see right here I have two options that are available, a 1 hour tech question or a half-hour tech question. And you can also see, like, if I click on I have to select a service and then select a date. So when I click on the 20th, you can see that I'm available between 11:10, 11:40, 12:10, 12:40, and it's broken it down into different slots. If I change over to the 1 hour, it shows all the 1 hour slots that are available. And once one of these fills, it's going to send me an email and it's going to remove those options from the list. I've also set it in here so that there's some buffer time, so that if I need to worry about people running over on time, then I can give them a little bit of a buffer so that they don't, it doesn't, I don't end up running into the next meeting. So I'm actually going to be trying this year with you guys. I have put that link at the bottom of my signature, so anytime that I send out an email now, there's going to be a link directly into that. You can click on that link and you can choose a time, and you don't even have to ask me for it, because it's already going to be time that's available for me to talk with you. You just put in your information. If I were to block out, say for instance, 11:10, then I put in my name and my email address, and then down here I can put my notes. And what you would put in the notes is what you want to talk about. And then once you have all that in, just click book, and then you've automatically been put on my schedule. There's no emailing back and forth to try and find a time or anything like that. It's just done, So I'm looking forward to trying this out and seeing if this works with you guys. And I'm sure that if it's working well for me, it'll work well for you when you're doing office hours.
Doc, if it says the license is not assigned or not ready yet.
What was that?
For bookings, it says license is not assigned or not yet ready.
Let me come over there and check.
It's okay. We can do it later.
I just want to see what the message says.
Okay. See, no, I had to add it. It wasn't right in my app.
Yeah, you have to search in the apps and then you have to add it yourself.
Okay.
That license thing might be because I don't know if you guys I don't know if you guys always have the same access to everything as the tech department does. So it might be possible that that's not under our teacher license. So hopefully I'll look into that and I'll see if that's going to be available to you guys or not. If it's not, it's still important that you guys know that that's an option, because that is going to be part of how we work together this year, because makes it a lot easier for you guys to book time with me if you're going through this. So then you don't have to do the back and forth and be like, well, this time doesn't work for me, this time does, It's just going to be all through bookings. Oop. Okay, so that was all I had on the upgrades from last year. Does anybody have any questions or issues that they ran into over the last year with Microsoft Teams? Is there anything that you would like to see covered before we move on?
Any chance I've thought about adding like equation editor type thing, so when I'm chatting with my students and trying to tell them how to do a math problem, I can put the symbols in there?
So I don't know that there's an equation editor, but one of the things you might not have known about, and it's going to involve me going back into a meeting. Let's go ahead and join into this meeting. So if I open the share tray right in here, one of the options that shows up on the side is the Microsoft Whiteboard. And this is where you can actually go in to create a whiteboard. It looks like it's still carried over my last playing around in the whiteboard. We're just going to go ahead and get rid of that and get rid of that. Yeah, basically I just go in here and I can start drawing in here. And so like if I'm actually at the whiteboard, I've got the pen controls and I've got all the nice, sort of touch stuff. If I'm using a device that's touch enabled, I can use the touch on that. Otherwise, you're drawing with a mouse, which isn't ideal, but some people can do great things with mice. So, this would be a good spot to go in for, jotting down equations and solving them. And this shares out with everybody in the meeting. So, everybody's screen. What's that?
But like if I'm just answering an individual question in a chat, I'm not in a meeting, I'm just.
Oh, yeah.
back and forth.
Yeah,
And solve something.
and yeah, it's never going to be ideal because of course it's text input, and text input is not great when it comes to advanced equations. About the only thing that I've seen that actually works for text input for math is like if you're using LaTeX or something like that. And I don't expect that we're going to be teaching LaTeX to any of our students. That just probably would not go over well.
Matt, I had something that worked tonight from online for that. I went into Smart Notebook software and just wrote what I needed, and then I did that Windows Shift S,
Right?
and it copied and pasted it into tabs.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing. Yeah. You could do that with any sort of whiteboarding sort of software. You just do the Windows Shift S and then you copy and paste that into the chat. That can be a good workaround. It's a quick and easy way to get equations in there. But if you were to do it like through text, there's no real good way of doing that text-based. So that students could like copy and paste it into whatever they're using. They would basically have to recreate the equation themselves. Which, whatever, that's fine. It's more practice for them to actually like understand what the equation is that they're putting in. Anybody else have any questions or concerns or things that they were looking at with Teams last year? Okay, so my big question is, what did you find difficult about using Teams last year?
Sometimes my students wouldn't get into the class because they didn't go to the calendar and they were going to an old link. I don't know. What is the best place to tell them to find that meeting?
Yeah, pretty much my ethos on the whole thing is the more ways that you can get that link to them, the better. You know, you email them, you put it in your learning management system, you put it on their calendar. Just having more places means less excuses for them. You know, that's just pretty much the best way of going about it, in my opinion, is just throw as many links out there as possible and try and keep it consistent. Good question. Anybody else have any real big difficulties that they want to address right now? All right. Does anybody have any ideas for something that they would want to do with Teams that they couldn't figure out how to do last year?
Breakout rooms exist in Teams, or is that something they talked about adding?
Okay, so breakout rooms don't exist in the same way that they do on Zoom. However, when you go into your team, and we're going to end this meeting. When you go into your team, what you can do is you can create a bunch of different teams within your big team. So like right here at my demo class, I've got one called General and one called News. If I wanted to break this out into smaller sections, say I wanted to add Group 1, I'm just going to add a channel. I'll call this one Group 1. And then I'm going to set it to private so that it's only accessible to a specific group of people within the team. Then I'll hit next. And this is going to allow me to add only specific people to this group. So if I wanted to search for students, I could add the members in there, or teachers in here. I could add them in here. I'm going to skip that for now. And then because there's this little padlock next to it, that means that that's private. That's only for specific individuals. So I can go ahead and add the members of this group into it, and only the members of that group and me are going to be able to see what's going on in here. And they get the same options where you've got the Meet, you've got the chat down here, and you've got the ability to add files at the top. So this can be a really good way to start incorporating group work using Teams. You basically just create a team for your class and then start adding in groups. And you can do that also with your class periods, so that you could have all the class periods underneath one team, but then you've got private groups for each of your class periods. You just go ahead and add in all of your students in there, and then now you've got a room for each individual class. You know, so there's a lot of power in the actual Teams portion of Teams, and it really just requires a little bit of playing around to see what the potential is there for you know, creating subgroups and working as groups.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
But we're doing like a STEM meeting, we're all on the platform, teachers, students, things along those lines. But we have an outside agency.
I'm gonna have to come over there and hear.
How do you,
My ears ain't working so well today.
when we're doing a STEM meeting, we have an outside, we have teachers, and everybody in the platform, teach them about it. But when we have some of the outside agencies, psychologists, how do we just never figure out how to get the other one?
Yeah, that's always been the difficulty, and I say if you're going to bring in somebody from outside our
They're
organization,
supposed to run it, that's why I'm confused.
yeah, if you're bringing in somebody from outside, it's probably best to just do Google Meets rather than Teams, because Teams really likes everybody to be in the organization. So then, Yeah, pretty much you just post a link to the Google Meets inside Teams or inside your link management system. Have them go there rather than Microsoft Teams. It's advised not to, because of privacy concerns and all of that. If that's the only way that you can get an outside consultant to work with you, then, I'd say go through the team and make sure that you're getting an okay on it. And then, see why, hopefully everything goes all right. Yeah, pretty much. I can't give a firm answer on that one way or another because I'm not the one who makes the shots. Okay, anything else on Teams before we move on? All right.
Oh, I have a question.
Okay.
One thing I was just thinking about from last spring is when you set up a meeting for a class, maybe you have the answer to this, do you need to type in everybody in your class to that required attendees, or is that link okay? Because I had a combination of doing it and
Yeah, as long as the students are signed in with their willistonschools.org account in Microsoft Teams, then even if they're not a required attendee and they still receive the link, you should still be able to invite them in that way. But the biggest issues always seem to be that students try to log in with personal accounts. And so it's just got to hammer into their heads that no, when you're doing schoolwork, you sign in with a school account. That's always the biggest recurring issue. Good question.
because when you type in everybody in your class and send it, then they each get a separate email,
Right,
as opposed to just sending out and posting that link
right.
once or twice or.
Yeah. So it comes down to which is more, which one you prefer, really. You don't have to send an invite out to everybody, but if you do, that's one more way that they can get to you. So, really, you just sort of have to balance, like, do I want to spend all that time typing in everybody's name and giving them the email, or do I want to just email the link out myself? And it's up to you which one you prefer. Of course, probably the easiest thing of all would be to create a team with all of your students in it. And then you would just send out the meeting like that. So we're going to go ahead and move on to PowerSchool Learning. I'll go ahead and open up PowerSchool Learning. So the first big thing, a lot of you have probably already done this, but just a quick reminder on how to create your class. There are the automatically created classes that get brought in by the link between PowerSchool and PowerTeacher, between PowerSchool Learning and PowerTeacher. There are the automatically rostered in classes that you get, and then there are the classes that you create. So when you have multiple sections of one class and you don't want to spend that time going between different sections and copying things over, you can create one class and pull in the rosters from the other classes. This is something that we do twice a year, once at the beginning of each semester. And if you don't remember how to do it, that makes a lot of sense, because if you only do something twice a year, you don't really ever get a chance to just make that sort of connection. So we're going to show how to create the class and then pull in the rosters from the automatically created classes. And the reason that we pull in the rosters from the automatically created classes is because that's what establishes the link between PowerSchool Learning and PowerTeacher Pro, so that we can send grades over and so we can keep those rosters updated. Now, this year we've got a little bit of a wrench thrown into this whole system because we've got A days and B days. So if you are making separate classes for your A days and your B days, that means you're basically not going to be able to rely on the automatic rostering. The automatic rostering really only works if you are able to do all of your class at the same time. So for you people who are doing one class for your entire, both your A group and your B group, and they're both participating in the same class, then you'll be able to do the automatic rostering. If you're doing a separate class for your A days and your B days, you're going to have to do manual rostering. And I'll show you how to do both of those right now. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the new class button down here. And there are a couple of different places that you can create a new class. I just chose to do the one here. But if I go over to my classes as well, there's another spot in here where you can just go ahead and click new class. And I'm going to give this one a name. And then I'll click next and finish. Now, if you have templates from your previous years that you want to reuse, you can select them from here and it'll automatically pull over the content from those templates. So if you saved your class last year as a template, you can select it from this list and not have to worry about copying anything over or anything like that. It'll just pull it automatically. When you get a lot of different templates, that can be quite an exhaustive list. So every so often, if you start noticing this list getting pretty long, you might want to go through and clear out some of your old templates. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select no template, and I'll click finish. So now I've got a blank new class. And I can start filling this in with my content and doing whatever I need to with it. But right now I'm worried about rostering my class. So if I am doing separate A and B days, I'm going to have to create 2 different classes, and then I'm going to have to roster this by hand. So I'll click on Manage Class, Edit Roster, and then I'm going to click on plus Add Student. And this is how you manually add students into your class. You can search for their name. You can search, narrow it down so that it's only looking for kids at the high school. And you could do students. So right now it's just going to narrow it down to high school students. And I could go through and I could add specific individual students, or I can add their name in here to search for those students. So let's go ahead and find, and this is going to be under all types. Okay, so I want to add this particular student to my class. I'll click plus add. And then it doesn't take me back. So that student has been added, but now I can just go in here and I can look for another student. And I can go in here and I can find Greg Larson. I'll add that student in here. And I can just keep on going back up and putting in last names or putting in whole names and adding students individually. Once I'm ready to take a look at my list and make sure that everybody's in there, I click on the Back to Roster button, and now I can look down in here and I can see, okay, I've got these different students in here. Does that match my list? And then once I'm done with that, I can just X out of that. If I accidentally add somebody that I didn't want in there, I can click on Manage, and then I can click Remove from Roster. It'll ask you to confirm that you want to remove them. I'll click OK. And then it's going to remove them from the class. If you've got multiple sections, you can still do the create sections. I'm going to go ahead and unroster this. And you can still do manual rostering with sections. So if I've got, 5 different class periods that I want added to this class, I can go in and I can create sections. Even if I'm not going to link them, it can be useful for me to have these different sections available. So I'm going to go ahead and create sections for this class. And then what I can do is I can either add students individually if I want to manually roster this class, or I can click on import students if I want to make sure that the rosters are consistent with the rosters in PowerSchool, and if I wanted to automatically update. So I can link the sections from PowerSchool to this class. And that's going to be useful if you've got just that single class that has multiple sections that you want to automatically roster in. So if I'm doing my A and B days as a combined class, I would do import students. If I'm doing separate ones, then I'm going to do add student. So we're going to pretend that this is going to be for both A and B sections. I don't personally mind if they're both seeing things, even though they're going to be coming on different days. So I'll click import students. And then when you click on import students, you want to check only list my classes, because that's going to narrow it down to just the classes that you are a teacher in. And if you don't do that and you put in something vague like English, you're going to see every single English class. So I'm going to go ahead and select from 2020, and I'm going to do English. And you'll see that I will see everybody's English classes even though I'm not a teacher in those. So right in here, I can select the class that I want to link in. And in fact, it's actually showing from other schools as well. So right in here, I've got the Hagen Elementary kids in this one. I'll click on import when I find the section that I want. Now the section numbers, it's important to know you need to take a look at these section numbers and match them with your sections in PowerSchool. So right in here, we've got a number in parentheses, that's 1014. We want to make sure that if we go to PowerSchool, so when you're taking a look at your PowerSchool page, one of the options that you can find is your schedule, and it'll show up as this kind of a thing right here, where you've got this colorful little chart that shows all of your different classes. Now, if I'm looking for a specific class period to roster into a specific section, I'm going to need to know what that class period section number is. So the important number to look for is directly under the name of the class. So English 10, I'll see that my class number is 24, that's the number before the period, and the section number is 14 for period 2 here. And the section number is the number after the period. And so this 14 right here is going to match up with the 14 right here. So right here I can see that this English 10 section 14 is the second period class. Now for many of the classes, it's also going to show the period number at the end, but that's not always the case. So like 0 hour, I think shows up as like period 8 or something like that. So it can be a little bit confusing if you just take a look at this number. Also, you'll notice that there is a 14 and then there's a 1014. And that's the first semester and second semester. First semester class is 14, second semester is 1014. Usually that's the case. Usually your first semester class will be a single or double digit section number. Your second semester class will be a 4-digit number, usually, but not always. So just take a note that the best way to figure out which class is which is to go to your sections, go to your schedule in PowerSchool and take a look at those section numbers. And remember, the section number is the number after the period. So I'll click on plus import next to the section that matches the number of the section that I want in PowerSchool. And then I do want to link this class.
Hey Doc,
Yep.
on my drop-down menu, it says 2023 tags.
Yeah, it does.
Does it matter which one I'm pulling?
Just pick the first one, I think. And if it's not in that one, then it might be in one of the other ones. I don't know why I did that this year.
It seems like it's rostering them all, so.
Yeah, I don't know why I did 3 2020s this year. It's just one of those weird quirks, I guess.
Doc, kind of along with that, like if you go to on your my classes active, I've only got like an advisory class there. Should the other classes?
Let me go ahead and let me check that for you in a second here. But just to finish this up, you would take a look at your list and make sure that all of the right students for the section that you want are in here, and then click import students. It'll pull in all of these students from your automatically created classes, and it'll put them into the section that you rostered them into. So now if I take a look at managed sections, you'll see that there's this linked class, this English Language Arts 3 from Hagen Elementary, and you'll see that there's 21 students who are linked into this section. Now all of those students will have access to this class once I make it active. If I accidentally linked in a class that I wasn't supposed to, or if I need to fix something that's happened, because occasionally the link breaks a little bit, at any time you can click this unlink, and then you can go back in and relink that class. That doesn't remove any student work. It doesn't remove any student information. It just deactivates student access to this class. So if I need to fix anything, like say for whatever reason it's not updating my different students, I can just unlink the class and relink it, and that usually kicks it into gear so that it'll pick up any new students. It'll still take overnight for that to happen, but it'll usually fix things. I think it takes overnight. It might actually be instant, but I don't remember exactly. So if I did this accidentally, I can click unlink, and it'll ask me to confirm that I want to remove those students from the class. Now, again, I'm not removing them actually from the class. I'm just deactivating them from the class. So if I were to take a look at the inactive students, there is a way to look at students who have been disabled from a class. I'll have to remember exactly how to do that before I can show that off. But you can go in and you can find students who have been removed from a class and actually access that student work. So, you know, even if you've got it from previous years, it's still holding on to that student work, which is something that I only learned about recently, and it's pretty cool because that way, like, a student leaves or something, they come back, their stuff is still there. So, yeah, that's nice to know about. Okay, so let me just quick look. Okay, so when you were taking a look at your classes, let's go ahead and go over to the My Classes tab. Now, the default tab that it shows is the active tab. If you go over to the inactive tab, is it showing a bunch of classes in there as well?
Yeah.
And that looks right?
3/20/20.
Yeah, it's still got the 3/20/20s in here. I don't know why it's showing 3/20/20s.
They're in there.
They're all going the same place. I don't know why that's showing up. It's weird, and I'll probably put in a bug request, but it doesn't break anything, so it's really low priority. All of your automatically rostered classes start off in this inactive state. If you want to use the automatically rostered classes, you can. But again, if you're going to do the separate A and B days, that's not going to, it's not going to split them off because that's not how they're set up in PowerSchool. Everything that's in PowerSchool Learning is that's automatically rostered is based off of what's in PowerSchool and in PowerTeacher. So since PowerSchool PowerTeacher doesn't split into A and B days, you basically have to do that by hand if you're going to do it that way.
If you put it manually, will you still be able to grade them PowerSchool Learning and get it into PowerSchool?
No, you will not be able to automatically transfer grades. You'll have to do that by hand. So, that's really where it becomes like a cost benefit sort of thing, where it's like, is it worth it for me to worry about giving A students one more day to complete the work? Or is it more worth it for me to be able to automatically transfer grades? And that is the weighing that you'll have to do when you're figuring out how you want to create your class. And I can't tell you what your priorities are going to be, so I'm just letting you know these are what the options are. Okay, one quick thing that I did want to make sure that everybody was aware of is the difference between a published and unpublished class and page, because we do have a little bit of trouble with this at the beginning of every semester, pretty much. If your classes are not showing up on your dashboard on the left-hand side, it means that they have not been made active yet. And there's a simple way of making a class active. You go to your inactive classes tab, and then you click on the Manage Class button, and then you click on Make Active. If you don't click Make Active, your students will not be able to see your class. So just make sure that you are going there before class starts and clicking on Manage Class, Make Active. You can also do that from within a class by going to the Manage Class at the top right and then scrolling all the way down to the bottom, and then there's the Make Active button inside the class as well. When you create a new page in PowerSchool Learning, it automatically sets that page to be unpublished. So do make sure that once you've created a new page and it's ready for students to see, you just click on that little gray icon with the line through it, and you publish that page. If you don't publish the page, your students won't be able to see it, and they'll be confused about you telling them to go someplace that they don't have access to. So just be sure that you're publishing your page and you're making your courses active. One of the things that I wanted to show off was using OneNote class notebooks with PowerSchool Learning. There were a couple of people who were asking about how to do this because I had shown them like a couple of years back or whatever that this was something that you could do. And it is set up so that you can actually set up a OneNote class notebook in PowerSchool Learning so that students can just click a link and it automatically puts them in the OneNote class notebook, gives them access to everything. It's really simple once you've learned how to do it. So we're going to go ahead and create that content block to make our OneNote class notebook and link it to our class. So I'll click plus add content block, and then I'm going to go over to the messages and activities tab. And in this tab, there is one that is kind of cryptic called LTI and SCORM. And this is just basically where certain plugins are put. And OneNote Class Notebook is one of those plugins that we've set up to use with PowerSchool Learning. So if I click on LTI and SCORM, you can see OneNote Class Notebook is an option for adding to a PowerSchool Learning class. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And then I can give this a name, so I'll call this Notes. And I can add some context in here in my description, or I can leave that blank. And I'll just click Save and Configure. And now, if I scroll down a little bit, it's going to ask me to sign into OneNote, which I will do. And then it gives me a couple of different things. Yes, thank you, Office. First off, I have to give the name of my class, and this will be the name of the notebook. So if I want to name the notebook something different from my class, I would have to name it in here. I'll hit Next. Then in here, it's going to say what it's going to give you. I'll just click Next. If I need to add any co-teachers to this, I can add them by using their email address here. I don't have any co-teachers, so I'm just going to hit Next. The first checkbox on here says automatically add students from your LMS as they access this notebook. It's important to know that your students aren't automatically added to this until they click the link to the OneNote Class Notebook. So they have to click the link in order to gain access to this notebook. But once they do, it's going to automatically create any content that you have set to create for any student. So if you do that this way, then they have to click the link before they can get access to the notebook. If you do it the other way, be prepared to type in every email address for every one of your kids. That's usually not a very efficient way of doing things. So I always just go with automatically add students from your LMS. In here, you can add different sections, or you can remove some of the defaults. So if I don't need that quizzes section, I can X out of that. And if I want to add one called mitochondria, I can put that in there. Which, by the way, biology teachers, I have a challenge to you. Try to talk about mitochondria without referring to it as the powerhouse of the cell. Challenge. All right. So now that all of my stuff is set up, it gives me another preview of what it's going to look like. So from the teacher's end, it gives me all these different tabs. And then when I go over and take a look at what the student gets, the students get additional tabs that I can put stuff into. I can just push out content to them. OneNote Class Notebook is a very powerful tool, and if you haven't used it before, it is one of those things that I'd like to cover again, just because the more times you see it, the more you might have a chance of saying, like, hey, this is going to be really useful. So I'll just go ahead and hit Publish. And then you get a couple of different options in here. Do you want this embedded as a link or embedded on the page? Do you want it at the top or the bottom of the page? When will students be able to access this? If I want it to close out after a certain amount of time, I can set it to do that. Instead, I'm going to leave it with all the defaults, and I'll click Finish. And it's going to tell me I need to pick a page. So let's put it on first page and finish. And now it's just a little link on the main page here. So when you click on it, it'll open up a new tab that takes you directly to the OneNote Class Notebook. Of course, I think I accidentally didn't finish the last time. So, oops. Normally it would just show the OneNote class notebook right in here with all of the stuff that you set up. Because I forgot to hit that last finish button, it didn't set up correctly. So I would have to remove this and then add a new one. But that is the process. You go into add content block under messages and activities, and then LTI and SCORM, OneNote class notebook, and follow the steps there. Yes?
Is this gonna help, so last spring, there was just a whole lot of problems with PowerSchool learning getting bogged down, will this help alleviate that?
Well, anytime that you're using something that's not PowerSchool Learning's file transfer system, then you don't have to worry about PowerSchool Learning's file transfer system being slow. However, that seemed to resolve itself a couple of weeks after we started using PowerSchool Learning at the end of last year. So really, I think it was, there was a database issue and a capacity issue that were both happening at the same time. And once they sort of shook those down, then we started seeing a lot smoother of transfer times. I don't see it being as much of a problem this year, but then again, it's technology. Of course it's going to go wrong. And it's going to go wrong in strange, new, unusual ways. That's just the nature of the beast. But hopefully we don't see any problems like that, especially because this year we're looking at like nationwide, there's a lot more schools that are going back to in-person that aren't relying on learning management systems as the only method of communication between teachers and students. So hopefully we're going to see a lot less of the capacity issues, and that database issue shouldn't be an issue anymore. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. But yeah, whenever possible, instead of using the file transfer system in PowerSchool Learning, I do recommend using Google Drive. Google Drive is just a lot more stable. You know, it's Google, and Google is one of those huge companies that really has a lot of experience in file management, cloud storage and sharing and all of that. So yeah, that's my other big piece of advice is don't use the file transfer in PowerSchool Learning, use Google Drive whenever possible.
Can you show us how you would take that off there? You said if you had it unfinished, you would have to take that off.
Oh yeah, basically just click on Manage Block and then click Delete. And then OK, and it's gone. Yeah, it's pretty much anytime that you want to mess with something that you've already created, it's that little gear at the top right of the block. That little gear at the top right of the block gives you your move, your copy, and your edit commands, as well as your delete. So just knowing that that's something that you can use to manipulate that block is valuable. Okay, so I did have the questions that were sent to me by email for this one. I made a template, Hybrid A and Hybrid B, for each of my classes. Will PowerSchool grades be separated like this, or will it be one class with them all in period one? And the answer is it is going to be one class. The A and B are not split out. PowerSchool is, they're set up in PowerSchool to be one class period, and they're not split out into A and B. Which is unfortunate, but it's just the reality of the situation. You know, if you're going to do any sort of automatic rostering, it's going to be all or nothing. Is basically what's up there. And then when you transfer your grades over, even though you've got your A, your 1A and your 1B, they're both going to be period one. So you know, it's just what we're going to have to deal with there. Do I need to make a PowerSchool Learning class for Hybrid A and Hybrid B? There's no way I can have the same week plan for each class or assignments due the same day. I think the gist of this question is it possible to is it possible to just roster everybody into one class? And yes, you can do it that way. For some people, it's just going to be more convenient to have your A and B days Regardless of the fact that you're seeing one group one day and one group the next day, having all of your due dates consistent, that might be the way to go for you, but every class is going to be a little bit different. So you just kind of got to go with what's going to work for you. Do you want your students to all have stuff due on the same day, even though they're going to be seeing you on different days? Or do you want to stagger it and have to roster by hand and have to transfer grades over by hand? It's really going to come down to each person's individual preference. If I need to, will the grades sync, or will I have to manually enter them? If you are doing both A and B groups in the same class, you can do the automatic roster sync. If you are doing split A and B, you're going to have to transfer grades by hand. How to best link an assignment so students can upload in a timely manner. Use attach with Google Drive whenever possible. And when students are uploading, have them attach with Google Drive as well. Just really just push that everything is going through Google Drive, because when you use Google Drive, then it's Google's servers who are dealing with the file management, and Google servers rarely have significant problems that cause delays in file management. So, especially like if you're going to assign out a template or a worksheet, assign it through Google Drive and check there's a little box that appears all the way to the right once you've attached a file to an assignment, and it says handouts. If you check the button that says handouts, it assigns out a file, a copy of the file to every student that gives you and the student access to it automatically. This is the same thing that Google Classroom does, where it creates one copy for every student and gives both you and the student access to that file. So that means even if the student doesn't complete that work, you still have the ability to see that file and how much work was completed on the due date. So those can be a lot of save you a lot of work trying to chase down student work, because you already have access to those documents. It's just a matter of now, if the student didn't click turn in, you still have the ability to see it. How to save time when grading on PowerSchool Learning. I don't know that there's really like any hidden trick to saving time for grading on PowerSchool Learning. Using the annotate tool, if they're uploading document files, can make it quicker to go between different papers. But then the downside on that is that only works if they're using PowerSchool Learning's file upload system. And PowerSchool Learning's file upload system is not as reliable as Google Docs. So having to grade in Google Docs, yes, it's going to open up a new tab every time. And that can be very annoying. But I don't necessarily see any alternative as being better. So really it'll come down to personal preference. Would you rather have students submit documents and occasionally, maybe the file transfer system doesn't work as nicely as we'd like it to, or do you have them submit as Google Docs and then you have to switch back and forth between tabs? Basically, the way I see it, you're going to have to make a call one way or the other. And nothing is going to be perfect, unfortunately.
Is there any way in PowerSchool Learning to get it so that our class defaults the whole roster together? Like I had classes of 21, you would seriously put the 21st kid on the second page.
Right.
Like can we, like in PowerSchool, our grade book, we see our whole roster at once, but in PowerSchool Learning, it groups it and you have to go to another tab for the rest of the kids' names.
I'll have to look into that. It might be possible that where you can set like show 50 kids or something like that. It might be in like some weird page somewhere. But if that's not the case, then we could put it in as a feature request.
That would be great.
Obviously there's no guarantee that they're actually going to do that, but we can put it in as a request and hopefully they listen.
Because like, in this day and age, a class of 20 is not typical for really anything.
Oh, yeah, no
Especially
doubt.
when you're in class.
Yeah, yeah, I think it would be very rare to find a school that is running classes that are below 20. Yeah, so yeah, we can put that in as a feature request. Let me. Okay, so last question that somebody had emailed me was, I'm interested in hearing more ideas for avoiding cheating if we use online assessments. Any ideas are appreciated. So one of the things that I keep getting asked about PowerSchool Learning is if there's any sort of lockdown browser capability. Yes and no. And the bad news is, in order to use the one lockdown tool that is supported by PowerSchool Learning, we would have to have all of our students on Mac or Windows devices, which is not going to happen, basically. We're using Chromebooks for a reason, and the reason is that they're easy to manage and they're not expensive. When it comes down to it, if we were to try and get all of the students onto Windows or Mac devices, that would be a huge expense and undertaking. And so that's not going to happen. Which means that the alternative for locking down any sort of quiz or exam would be going over to Google Forms. Because Google Forms actually does work with, they have a lockdown for Chromebooks. And as far as I'm aware, Google Forms is the only solution that reliably works with Chromebooks. And so basically I would go to forms.google.com. And then I'll start with a blank quiz here. And then I'll go to the settings gear. And under the quizzes section, you can click turn on locked mode. And that essentially does the same thing as a lockdown browser or safe exam browser, where it locks their screen so that the only thing that they can do is take the quiz. It doesn't let them change tabs. It doesn't let them copy and paste from another tab. It locks down the quiz onto their browser. When you do this, you can have it so that it's automatically grading, and it will put the grade in the responses, so you can look through your responses and see what each student got, what their score was. But there's no way to automatically transfer the score over. So again, it becomes one of those balancing sort of things where, do I want the lockdown? Is that such a priority where I'm willing to transfer the grades by hand? If it is that much of a priority, then this is the way to go about it. You just take the link to this quiz and you paste it into your PowerSchool Learning. You do that by clicking on send, and then you click on the little link icon here, and you just copy this link and paste it into PowerSchool Learning. This is the way to get lockdown quizzes. As far as other ideas for avoiding cheating, the biggest one is Google your questions. If your response comes up in the first page, they're basically, your students are going to pull out their cell phones, they're going to sneak them under the desk when they think you're not looking, and they're going to Google your questions, and if they show up in the first page, that question has basically been worthless. So if you are doing any sort of summative assessment and you really want to make sure that your students are not cheating, Google your questions and make sure that their answers don't show up within at least the first page of Google. And that can be exceptionally tough for things like math classes, because Google is basically designed so that you can put any sort of equation in there and it'll solve it for them. So I guess for that one, maybe doing word problems, mixing it up a little bit. Especially having students explain reasoning can be very powerful in making sure that students are not just looking up the answer. Focusing on getting those higher order questions in there can be very powerful. But as far as technological solutions, no, technology is geared towards cheaters. Technology is absolutely geared towards cheaters. Technology is made for lazy people by lazy people. That's the long and short of it. So, technology is going to be enabling cheating. There's no doubt about that. And it will enable cheating easier than it is going to make things difficult for cheaters. So just be aware of that. We are fighting against the rat race of lazy people making things for lazy people.
Just a clarification, the Google Form lockdown for the quizzes only works on Chromebooks?
It works for everything, as long as they're using...
Students bringing their own device as a junior or senior still?
What's that?
It would work on I brought my own device?
Yeah, as long as they're signed in with Chrome. I believe it's with Chrome. Maybe it works with Firefox as well. But that means Chrome and Edge, modern Edge, since they're both Chromium-based browsers, should work with both of them. Yeah.
I actually used the forums and Google Classroom this summer,
Mhm.
and I had students who could not do the quizzes unless they were on Chromebooks.
Huh. Well, there's no excuse for any student to not have a Chromebook this year.
What about juniors and seniors?
Yeah, half the students don't. Yeah.
They still get assigned Chromebooks. No?
No, just freshmen and sophomore are getting handouts.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
If the juniors and seniors say they don't have advice, they're allowed to come in and get one.
Okay.
But they say, we hope you have your own device.
Okay. Well, that's different from what I was told at the end of last year, I guess. So,
It's a little bit.
it's one of those things, nobody ever tells me anything. I got to find out about these things all the time, Anyway, any further questions? Okay, so we've been going for a little bit over an hour. Let's go ahead and take a 10-15 minute break. Everybody get some stretching done, go to the bathroom if you need to, get some refills on your water bottle or whatever. And then we'll be back here at, let's call it 9:45.
Individually later or try to?
Yeah, I'll be posted out here for.
They're not looking at whitelisted by the administration, so we can't just have you expect the information. So I just think it's it's from the Google site. It's free. It's a free edition. So I just asked
You can't see their grades and something.
Right. Yeah.
Do what you gotta do, but
In
just-
the afternoon. Yeah. I'll have some time.
Okay, yeah,
They're
this,
bugging you.
today,
They're bugging you.
Good, sir.
I'm about,
Good.
one, I'll try to make it.
That's the easiest way to do it.
When we use, Emily Garcia, come to, we got another time also.
I'm having a little issue with
But
the,
that doesn't always work because it doesn't.
power school learning, like I'm trying to get all my classes in one
Just taking the test
master
outside your
class,
time
but
with your
it's
monitor.
not letting anybody do that. Like you have to
But
make a
yeah,
separate podcast every single.
we
It's a lot of
stopped
extra
recording
work.
and
I tried it, but you know, I did that all last year, you know, because I had,
and it was less.
like you did one class and then different sessions of that same class.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if I should just chin up and just make do with all the classes and deal with it all year.
He's got an office, he's got an office.
I tried doing it with him first, you know,
Yeah, today is like
doing
kind of
it
an
all
exception for that. I should have blocked out my calendar saying that it was open, you know, like free for all, but I didn't do that because of reasons.
Or you
Get my wife some
I just used, I started off with,
You don't have to schedule something because I'll just be open. I'll be here, basically.
I did it last fall.
Yeah, I'll have to use it until about 3.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I know you're wanting to set up.
I really like how they,
Printing.
Oh, yeah, there's that too, that's not the,
It's
that's
laid
not
out more
the.
like a website than it is like a stream.
Okay,
We'll get that
so,
Well, you know,
so
it's
in the
just,
afternoon, you suggest just coming
like,
down here and waiting,
the
just
college.
wait in
Yeah.
line or whatever?
Yeah,
have everything.
hopefully the line won't be too itchy.
I don't know, you're a popular guy.
I know.
Thank you.
That's what would be nice if somebody could find out, find something to kind of stick with it through high school, through college. Same with the students, you know,
Okay,
those are
okay.
something new.
Even if it was something that the teachers could still kind of, just a platform they could create their own websites on, like Adobe Spark or something, but then just incorporate it in Dropbox.
I did that last year.
Are you,
Doc had all those.
are you
they had
sure
all
that you're
those
getting
apps.
it?
Which was that? Was that a big piece of work?
But from 1 o'clock to
Yeah, well,
Adobe
we'll need to
Spark,
take a look at it.
We's working, you know, like it's more interactive rather than like powerful learning is
There's several
very,
steps where you can get
it feels like a Word document or something, you know?
Yeah.
There's an option at the bottom that
Never
says
done that.
class.
You know, when all else fails, it's like,
of course it's, of course it won't show up online because I just but yeah, if
big boys can control everything, so it's just go with one of those boys and everything. Everything, just whether it's a database systems, whatever.
But I have to, see if I can figure out that issue with the numbers.
They found out.
But yeah,
when
okay,
these interviews
cool.
yeah,
and
because
stuff,
you know, for the most part, it works.
They'd
And I
hire
did it this summer, or last
Yeah.
spring. I put 3 geometry classes all in one team. I did it. I don't know how I did it. So it's possible.
Yeah, it wasn't close to step. Take a look at that one.
Yeah.
millions of dollars to do it, right? Somebody said, well,
Hey, Don, if we're trying to download some like Google extensions and add-ons, but it's saying that it's not whitelisted,
Yeah.
what would we have to do?
Put in a ticket.
Put in a ticket and say, hey, I'd like to use this. And,
Yep.
Okay, so just a general ticket.
Yeah, Greg's got a whitelist those in Google Admin.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yep.
I will do that. Thank
I'm
you.
happy with
No
it.
problem.
It's just trying to get the classes in one. Doc, do you know if we'll be able to get a master class? I know she asked that question already, but I was wondering, right now I'm at the point where, do you think I should just make do with having a separate section for each of my classes, or should I kind of wait and see if I can get them all in one?
In Power School Learning or?
Power School Learning, yeah.
It's going to be up to you. Like, are you going to differentiate your due dates or not? Like, are you going to have different due dates for either your A section and B section, or are you going to do the same due date for both? Because that's really the determining factor on whether you're going to do split classes or.
Well, it's just like a lot of the due dates I have, it's more hands-on, like I have worksheets, and so
Right.
then it's like, that's not a problem. But then the things on Power School Learning, they're more like discussion things, and it's like if they don't do it, they're not going to get credit for it at that time. Video journals was another one. I have some Google Doc assignments, which I accept via email if they're late. So
Right.
it's like once it's closed, there's other ways they have access to that.
Right.
They just get the Google Doc, email it to me. They each, you know, as they click and it creates their own version of the assignments. And then
Yeah,
they share it
so
with me.
ultimately it ends up being personal preference. You know, so you got to decide which is going to be more consistent with how you're going to run your class.
I absolutely am okay with the due date thing. Like, I want one master class. And I know Mr. Sykes does, but that's the thing. Like, we're all trying to. I know Miss Hall did. That's what she was asking. We're all trying to, but it's just not letting us. So like, it's just saying you have. We've import. You know, it imports the roster. It's already done that for us, but we can get it to like yours where you had them all in one. Ours is like you have 7 or 8, and it's just untenable. It's like you're wasting so much time clicking from class to class, assignment to assignment. If you just had it all in one place, it's like, you know what I mean? I'm still going to use it either way because Power School Learning is just like.
So you mean like because you've rostered it in different sections, they all show up on different pages, or?
Well, I actually didn't make the rosters. They're just inactive. They're showing up, you know, because they're on my Power School Pro, Power School Pro.
Yeah.
So they're just there.
Yeah. So you got to create the class, and then you got to do add sections. In the edit rosters, add sections, and then you make your different sections, and then you do import students.
Okay, I will try that. I thought that might have been it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what because that's what I do. It's kind of like you look at the advisory, right? Because you got the advisory, you got the main shell, and then each advisory teacher has a section with their students under that. So like you said, you add your section, and then and that way then that same box will pop up, so you can have section A, B, C, D, whatever.
Thank you. I really hope this works. I feel like Mr. Sykes already tried it because he's already like, oh, I give up. I'm just gonna have 7 different, you know.
Right.
Well, I'm
But
going
I'm
to do
gonna
it, so
try.
I'm hoping it'll work. I haven't done it yet. So I did the last class.
Yeah, it's so
I've
much
got like
easier.
3 sections of one class, right?